I come from, I'm staying at 6 Miles. My name is Queen Maije. I was at Munda. So, introductions. Can I know you? Sorry? Edna? Egnat. Okay. You're coming from, you're staying? Okay. What year are you in? Year 4? Second semester? Mercy? Mercy who? Right? Where are you staying?
25.
Was I talking to you on the phone? Oh. And yourself, mister?
Dixon P. There for the same.
Year 4. You're all in year 4.
Year 4.
Oh, okay. So how many are we supposed to be? I saw 8, 7.
But the people like Jerome, she needed the books, so I don't know why.
Who? Sharon. What if you added her and then she left?
Yeah, I added her and she left. So, like, they were letting me, one of them, like, yeah, it was left.
No. Kuma, she's supposed to be a part of us.
I think so.
I'll just ask around. Okay, so this is So this is Community Economic Development, in short CED. We're supposed to be meeting here at 10 every Thursday. Okay. So let us start. For the recommended books or notes. So I'll be writing. I'll encourage you to write whatever I'm writing. There are the notes, and I'll also give you that. And by the end of this class, we're supposed to have an assignment, which is due on the 16th. What else? I think that's it. So, what comes to your mind when you hear the word development? Pretty much, you said your name was? Sorry?
Improvement, like maybe the way things were before and now. There's some changes. Maybe there's tricky structures for the I can say improvement to new standards.
Yeah, very true. You're improving something. So it can be a building. Or you're developing something new. What else can you think of? Tips and evidence? Either.
An introduction of something new.
Yes, very true. Yes, sir.
Sustainable improvement.
Yes. So it can be you're improving something to be sustainable, or you're just improving it, like you're maintaining it, or you're developing something new altogether. What about economic development? Economic development.
Financial improvement.
Improving financial circulation.
Okay. And what about community economic development?
Improving the way the money.
All right, finances. So I'm hearing a lot about finances. But when we say development, we say it could be anything. So even with economic development, it's more about improving the quality of life or the economic well-being. So it can be finances, or it can be health-wise, but it can be in a nation, a region, or in a local community. So we have communities in the rural and in both rural and urban settings. So one of the definitions of economic development you can move, because I'll be reading a lot. Sit where you can see. Better blanket. I'll read them out loud. So I guess to sit in Fanfabo, you don't have to say any rules and regulations about this class. Make sure your phones are on silent and no phones allowed, unless you're writing notes on your phone. So that's something else. But yeah, we're only here for 2 hours. So economic development is the process by which the economic well-being and quality life of a nation, region, or a local community is improved. So the term has been frequently used in the 20th and 21st centuries, but the concept of economic development is the process by which the economic well-being and quality of life of a nation, region, or local community are improved. So the term has been frequently used in the 20th and 21st centuries. Some of the other terms related to economic well-being, economic development, modernization, so some of the terms related to economic development are modernization, westernization, and industrialization. So, whereas economic development is a policy intervention endeavor aiming to improve the well-being of people, economic growth is a phenomenon of market productivity and rise in GDP. So I'm pretty sure I've heard of economic development and economic growth, but do we know the difference? Or what comes to mind when you hear economic growth?
Economic growth, it is like financial, financial is being good, like the way I give example, the Chinese country.
The what? China?
Yeah.
What about
But now, like in terms of economic, they are growing financially.
China is one of the examples of countries doing well in terms of their economic growth. So, yeah, economic growth means your income is increasing. For a country, it would be the GDP. GDP is gross domestic product. We all know that. Or it could be the GNP. GNP is gross national product. So, as you can see, economic growth, it's more about the financial part, the income or the GDP. But economic development is more about quality of life or economic well-being. So, meaning this is a broader term than economic growth. So, economic growth can be encompassed by economic development. So what I'm saying is that economic growth is just one of the elements of economic development. So the definition for economic growth The definition of economic growth. This means the capacity of an economy to generate a growth rate of GNP, gross national product, or GDP, of about 5 to 7% annually. It can be low for some countries, for our country. If you're generating an increase of 3% GDP every year, that's also economic growth. But ideally, 5 to 7% of GDP. So, why this? So some people may be confusing economic growth and development, but however, some of the things to take note of that when you're talking about economic growth, it does not take account the income distribution. You're here for class. Get in. So, for some of the shortfalls of economic growth, or maybe why we may not always want to focus on just economic growth. First of all, the definition does not take into account the income. It does not take into account the income distribution or the inequality rates. Economic growth just talks about increase in income or increase in GDP. However, development can talk about how the inequality distribution is in that country or in that region or community. How different are the poor from the rich? What are the income differences? And how can we amend the income differences? The second one is there is limited participation of the rural community in the market. So one of the things that the economic development looks at is how are people participating. Yes. What is the participation of the rural in the market? Because when you're developing, you have to make sure that you're developing in all areas. Not just income, but also how are people participating in development activities. And the third thing is that unemployment rates. One of the things that economic growth does not take into account is the unemployment rate. So economic development aims at improving the employment rate, while growth just focuses on increasing income. So whether one person is benefiting and when they're suffering, it doesn't look at that, but development looks at the employment rate. Are people employed, or is employment only to one side? And the last thing that economic growth that we want to encompass is the domestic, or the work performed in homes, domestic chores. It does not look at gender equality or gender equity. But development looks at all that. Ladies, welcome to class. So, I know you. I am Queen Angel. Are you good? Tada. So, you're in here for? First or second? So are you all studying program community development? Yeah. Alright. So, because we're saying development encompasses the income distribution, participation, the employment rate, the work performed in homes. And that means we can redefine economic development. At first, we're just saying that improvement in the quality of life and economic well-being, but we can also define economic development as a multidimensional process involving major changes in social structures, popular attitudes, national institutions, reduction of inequality, and eradication of poverty. So that's another definition for economic development. So when it comes to Malawi, do you think we're developing? Obviously, we're not developed, but we're a developing country. But are we developing? We're trying. So, in which areas do you think we're developing? The road networks, especially in the cities, are improving. What else? Como we to do very long, we find that the road to Kasumu, very poor. So, what other aspect are we developing? Sorry? Health. For example?
Building hospitals in rural areas.
Yeah, that's a very good development. In what other aspects are we developing? What other sectors? I'm pretty sure we can all think of something. So, education. What about education?
Okay, I guess most of schools, number of schools and we used to like the big schools, really big schools, but now they're increasing. There's public universities and the community universities.
Of course, the number of universities have increased. So have the number of primary schools, secondary schools. So if you look at 10 years ago, we have more people being educated now, more people graduating than before. Are we improving in our agricultural sector? Yes. In what way? Yes, please. Let's all be open.
These days there are more improved ways of housing.
Of course, a lot of projects coming in, telling farmers that they have to change in how they're farming. Let's focus on improving our farming, making sure that our soils stay healthy. What else? So all the areas I've mentioned, we're slowly improving. But one area that is very important for Malawi is the agricultural sector, since it provides about 80% or it contributes about 80% to the GDP. And almost 80% of the population, or most of the majority of the population, comes from the rural areas, and this is where agriculture is performed a lot. And when we go for or we have land with Timarimo, so people in the rural areas heavily rely on farming for food and for income. So it means goody, and in fact, most of our food in the rural areas. So smallholder farming or subsistence farming is very important because it feeds us, it contributes a lot to the income for the country. But however, despite goody farming or agriculture is very important, it faces some challenges. What do you think are some of the challenges agricultural sector faces, or government faces in improving the agricultural sector? Yeah. Anything else? Difficulties in improving education and health facilities. Environmental problems like deforestation, erosion. So all these things, they have an impact on development, economic development. So that's why you have to look at how can we develop communities, because from community comes in small communities make a district. That district makes up this country. So if we develop starting from the base or the roots of the country. That means we'll be able to develop the country as a whole. But then again, why do you think we have to look at economic development or community economic development? Other than what you were saying, that agriculture comes from communities and so on, both rural and urban. Why do we have to look at community economic development?
Maybe they are doing their family, and then we should provide them to the family machinery to fill in homes. Because they're the ones who are thinking that able to produce the food for the whole country, but the women in the restaurant that they are using, the whole cannot farm for a big place at the same time. While if you get an idea to plenty and reaches what they will be able to take their plans and so on.
Alright, so in order to, we are looking at economic development so that we improve our farming methods, so that we become commercial, improving in terms of our tools, equipment. What else? Any other reason? Not only in agriculture, but can be anything else.
Again, the roads, for easy transportation, the most for them to solve their needs, they need to have roads to transport food from a community or even where they find it from the food market to where they can sell it.
Yeah, so that we improve the infrastructure. For example, the road networks, not only improving roads in cities, but also in communities. If they're having better roads, it will be much easier to transport stuff and in the end, we're minimizing our losses and improving our incomes. What else?
When we fall sick in the certain community and we repair them in the cities because they don't have enough equipment and they are health centers.
Alright, so we've mentioned a number of things. All these things the government is already working on. For example, agriculture, there are several projects, NGOs, working with the rural communities on improving farming. On infrastructure, several developments happening. Same with the education system. But I don't know, what do you think Malawi could do differently? Because we're doing all these things, or what should we focus on Bambili so that we see a difference? Because in Thailand, if I'm not mistaken, Malawi was the Maori kwacha was at the same level as, is it the UK pound or euro? So we were very good economically, time in Europe, and then something changed. So even I saw somebody posted that Kamuzu once visited Taiwan as one of the poorest countries in the world. But now things have changed. Now we're the ones who are struggling, while other countries have improved. So, what do you think can help Kudi maybe Malawi should be back to where it was? So that means heavily investing in the rural areas. That's what you think. What about the others? Kabina, we're growing too fast. Is it our population rate? It's not right, because if you look at Japan, Japan has about 1 billion and above people, and their country is even smaller than ours, and they're very well to do. So if the problem is not population, then what can we do? Because that's one major factor. Increasing development. Corruption is rampant. That's a very good one. What else? So if you were a leader, you would focus on ending corruption. What about the rest of us? What do you think, Uniform? Yes. What do you think Malawi do? Is it heavily funding our educational system? Dixon, what do you think? If you were a leader right now, what would you do? So for me, I think I'll focus on education. If you have gone through school, most likely you're able to think and you're able to do something of your own. So these hands-on schools, technical schools, they're very good. Well, if I'm not mistaken, if you look at China, those are the small kids, they're able to develop something, or even Kwazu. They make these small experiments in their classrooms, in their class setup. So they heavily promote children from the young age to be innovative. So they start with school. So even if you're going through school, where I think in the end you would have a better chance of becoming, of being somewhere else, somewhere better off than somebody who hasn't been through school. So we have a better chance of developing. Do you think that's true?
Now
So in that school, we have the program Mindset Change.
Yes. We can also just empower them to do that income that help connect electricity with the other guy who says to me, and we came out of the radio station. And there's this other guy also, he was designing a car. He has an engine, but
No.
if the government can, this year should also, I think a lot of things can change.
Nobody, if he can receive proper training in what is
Yeah.
I think I should go one like a farm. So the most of the time, some of the time, I do that on documents. For no, I'm supposed to do that.
They are not transparent so by the government.
I think the problem is the government because the radio station, I don't know, but it was very things that he was arrested. So I think we need to improve the government.
the government is there. But if the person received proper instructions on whatever they're doing, they would not have been breaking the rules, hypothetically. So, I don't know, but to me I think the education is very important. Training, not just system, really formal education, but also informal education in the rural areas. It's very important. Resources. Anyway, so that's just one development to get you thinking what needs to be done, because in the end, we are all future leaders. We'll be somewhere. So let us look at the types of economic systems. So there are four types of economic systems. There is the traditional, command, mix, and market. And Malawi is one of these. So for the first one, in the traditional economic system, this is where most developing or third world countries are at, or even communities can be described as such. So this is where a country or a community produces products and services as a direct result of their beliefs, customs, or traditions and religions. And so this is where development is closely tied to land through farming. So I think we can place Malawi at this level because we heavily rely on our land for development. This is where a country produces products or services as a direct result of their beliefs, customs, or traditions and religions. So it means that, for example, here we believe we need origin in time. And that's what we do. We go and farm. But after that, there's not much work done. So we have to process our things to export them at a better quality. We just produce and export as final products. For example, Maso usually use soya and cities, but you can make flour out of it to come up with at a higher cost, a higher price than you'd sell the actual soya at. So despite that the economy is traditional, the economies or the country at such a stage has to interact with other economies in order to sell, trade, or barter. So for a traditional economic system, they will not experience the advantages of being in a market or a mixed economy. So in general, for a traditional economic system, if you have surplus, that surplus is a rare thing. And the way we handle the surplus is mainly on how the government directs us. So in many cases, the surplus is either distributed, wasted, or paid to a higher authority who has power. So we understand this better as we look at the mixed and the market economies. However, one of the advantages for a traditional economy is that the customs or the tradition of that country or community is preserved. However, in mixed or market economies, the customs or traditions are not preserved. So an example can be how we operate here in Malawi. We heavily rely on our traditions because this is how a family is supposed to operate, or a woman or a man is supposed to operate, and this is how you're supposed to function as a child. But however, in other economies that are well-to-do, because here they are mostly in third world countries, but in the mixed or market economies, they're mostly well-developed countries. So in there, their traditions or customs are usually not preserved. So tradition and customs are very important because, for example, if you believe a lot in community, as a community. So if you're preserving our traditions, even happiness levels, something that is very important, are better off than other countries Because if you look at the suicide rates in other countries, they're much higher than ours. Why? Because most of the times they live in isolation. Well, the main disadvantage is that in traditional economies, they do not enjoy the things other economies take for granted. For example, Western medicine, technology, and so on. So, in traditional economies, we're struggling a lot with medicine. We can say what we're developing, Kumano still. It's medicine for us to go to a community hospital or community center. The type of medicine we find there in Kama painkillers. Something very, as we say, usually, I think you're talking about this, until they are transferred to bigger hospitals because of lack of resources. One way, if you go outside, those resources are very abundant. So, a disadvantage of a traditional economy is that some of the things that are there in the Western economies, here we don't have them. So, for example, that's also technology. So, technology makes things easier. But since we don't have the resources for that, we suffer and people die unnecessarily when they could easily be operated on and so on and so forth. What do you think also can be an advantage or disadvantage of a traditional economic system?
What should be the use of local
Sorry?
an advantage? The use of local available resources.
Like there's abundance of natural resources. Very true. What else? So the advantages are some of them would say the abundance of the natural resources, preserved customs and traditions, low suicide rates, And the disadvantage are lack of technology or advanced technology and lack of improved medical facilities. Is there anything else? Or we can go to the next one. So the next one is the command economic system. However, before we go to the next one, on the abundance of natural resources. So I don't know, but I think recently there's a lot on climates that we have to plant trees, we have to do this and that so that we improve our climate. What do you think about this project? How important are they? Are they important at all?
Projects
On climatic changes, climate promoting of planting of trees, preserving our natural resources, those types of projects. But we're saying we have abundance of natural resources.
We don't have sometimes we do the so with that
Yeah, that's true. However, I think one thing to take note is that, for example, if we have a project in planting trees, in Africa, we are promoting good health, disease, and everything, but who is promoting that? What is their interest in that? Are we sure they have the right interest for us?
what it is like a lot of they were a lot of trees in the factory, but now see trees. And they're talking us about trees. And those trees, okay, people, if they are regular or maybe they are going those trees, but you can find maybe some truck, a lot of them cut for those trees and so, like I think we have some the European people, so the trees are going there.
That's one thing you have to look at. As Malawians, we heavily depend on aid. And so many projects that's coming from are they actually really helping us? Other countries are busy industrializing, but they're telling us plant trees to clean the environment, plant trees to clean the air. While we're busy planting trees, others are busy manufacturing cars and so on. So it's just food for thought. Even if there's aid coming in, that aid doesn't, or if you're giving somebody something, something, sometimes you don't just give it, you have your own conditions. So similarly as a country, we have to make sure that we're developing, slowly, we're moving out of financial aid and promoting our financial stability on our own. Because if we heavily depend on Antoine for financial stability, in the end, where are we going? They shall tell us in Zinazuri, Sidizaziwa, in the end they'll be affecting us completely. So the second one is the command economic system. So the command economic system. So in terms of economic advancement, the command economic system can be the next after the traditional. It does not necessarily mean that these are stages, but it can happen so. And by no means does this indicate that the command system, economic system, is an improvement or it is fairer than the other one. There are also advantages and disadvantages to this type of economic system. So the most notable feature of the command economic system is that a large part of the economy is heavily controlled by centralized power, often federal government. And this happens when the economy tends to have an abundance of a resource. So you've discovered that you have this resource, a valuable resource in abundance. So the government steps in and takes control and regulates everything that happens with that resource. So the government can own everything in terms of the industrial process, the equipment, the facilities. So one of the disadvantages of this kind of economic system is that over time it can create unrest among the population because you have only the government who is taking charge, who is taking the benefits. So if the government is not appropriating the benefits from that resource accordingly, it can create unrest or political conflicts in that economy or country. But if the government uses regulations properly, the command economy can also have its own advantages. So you can create, for example, there can be a creation of a healthy supply of all of the country's own resources. And also that resource can be available to the people at affordable prices. So the advantage is a healthy or stable supply of resources, and the other one is provision of resources at an affordable price to the people. So that's in terms of if the resources are being handled with proper regulations. But if the government is not handling the resources properly or without proper regulations, then there can be general unrest or conflict in the country over time. So this might mean, for example, there's an abundance of gold in Malawi. So if the government is employing people from outside coming in to work on our gold mines, then that can create general unrest or conflict. But if in a scenario where we have an abundance of gold and the government is involving the local people, then that means there can be stable supply of resources. That means the people will be benefiting from employment, the income will be high, and so on and so forth. Similarly, with the examples that you are giving, somebody has innovated, has made an innovation, so the government is coming in to support. That is very advantageous, other than just sending them all the way outside. That means those innovations, as the government benefit are the people outside the country, when in fact it was meant for the people here in the country. So the other one is the market economic system. So this is similar to a free market. Have you heard of the free market economy? Free market economy. What do you know about it?
Okay, yeah, market that way the control as a government.
You're right, I just didn't hear you properly.
Okay, I think they are not being controlled by the government.
Oh, yes. And the other one, what's the other name? Is it a traditional? So yeah, there is a free market economy. So this is where, or a market economy, so this is where the government does not intervene in the market or in the economy. So there's another one, a traditional, if I'm not mistaken, where the government regulates everything in the economy, which is similar to the command. Yeah. So however, in the free market economy, government does not control vital resources, valuable goods, or any other major segment of the economy. In this way, organizations run by the people determine how the economy runs, how supply is generated, and what demands are necessary. But however, there is no truly free market economy. There's no free command economic system. There's always some form of government intervention. That's why you have government, because some of the things are public goods, and public goods are hard to regulate. For example, you have street lights. How do you charge for street lights? No, it's the government who pays for that. Another example is while America is a capitalist nation, or a free market nation, the government still regulates or attempts to regulate fair trade. So there are government programs, moral business, monopolies, and etc. So if there is no government intervention, most likely there can be monopolies in that economy. For example, if Malawi has, I think one of the cases was how there was chicken supply in the country, and the prices were heavily dependent on how one company was regulating the chicken supply in the country. So if we have a product, for example, chicken, and it's only one company that is making chicken in Malawi, then it's high chances that company is going to say how high the price is or how low they're going to pay their workers. So that's why there is need for government intervention. That's why government sets the floor prices or the ceiling prices. Have you heard about those? No? So the floor price is the minimum prices at which you can sell a product. So sometimes the government can say, the floor price for this product is this much. Or the ceiling price, is more than this. Or fuel, for example, fuel is heavily regulated by government. And some of the fuel at the same price. If you go to Zungu, Jidiba, the fuel price is the same. So that's one example how government can regulate things in the market. Because if you don't regulate it, chances are there's going to be monopolies. So if there are monopolies, then only a few people benefit, and a lot of people will suffer. However, an advantage of a free economy, despite if not taken carefully, a lot of people can suffer. But one thing is that it can help boost the economy at an explosive rate. But this depends on how controlled the market is. The free market is very advantageous in terms of it can promote high economic growth rates. So another advantage of this kind of economy is that there is separation of the government and separation of the market and the government. So this prevents the government from becoming too powerful and too controlling, which results in the government oppressing the people. I think we can describe Malawi like this maybe in the coming years, but for now, of course there's freedom in the market, but we're lacking the advantage of high economic growth rates, despite that we have freedom in our markets, there's a free market. So the other advantage is that the separation of government and market allows the government not to become too powerful. If the government is too powerful, then people are oppressed. So the other one is a mixed economic system. So this is also known as a dual economy. So it is a combination of the command and market economic systems. So there can be a lot of variations in terms of how the economic systems are combined. They can be mostly market or mostly command economic system. Command, one thing to note is that there is no truly command economic system or truly free market economic system. There's always government intervention in how the economy operates. Command, the government intervention can vary, either it's a lot or it's not that much. So it can mean if it's a lot of government intervention, then it's falling under command. But if it's not a lot of government intervention, there is a lot of free market, then it's market economy system. But if there seems to be a mixture, a half-half combination, then that's a mixed economic system. So in the most common types of mixed economy system, the market is more or less free of government ownership, except for a few key areas. These areas are usually not the resources that a command economy controls. So these areas can be sectors such as education, transportation, health, where the government intervention has to be there. So while the sectors are there in the private, this education, transportation is there in the private economy, but however, the government also comes in to intervene. So what other examples can we think of in which government can intervene in a dual or mixed economy? Which other sectors is government intervening? Fertilizer. So that's the agriculture. agricultural sector. What else? And what can be the advantage of the mixed economic system? Oh, there's no advantage, or there's no disadvantage. A what? Fair pricing. Yes, most likely. Most certainly. So one advantage is, like, since the government is regulating the market, you can also regulate the prices. So for basic goods such as maize in Malawi, that means there is a fair price in such goods. It's accessible for those in the rural and urban communities. What else? Alright, so that's on the types of economic systems. Now let us look at how community, interconnectedness of community and development. But before we go there, how can we define community, a community? What is a community? Generally, that should go this way. Okay. You can say it in other ways. Okay.
A group of people sharing the same goal, beliefs,
A group of people who come together and really have common interests.
Okay. So one thing is common, that it's a group of people and there is something similar about them. So a community can also be defined as a social unit or a group of living things with commonality, such as norms, religion, values, customs, or identity. Can be a community of young people, or old people, or rich people, or poor people, or a community of Christians or Muslims. or there's something similar about you, doesn't necessarily mean Buddha, it's just ethnicity. So that's a community, not at all, but it can be just a group of people with commonality. And we already defined what economic development is. But development is just a process that creates growth, progress, positive change, or the addition of physical, economic, environmental, social, and demographic components. So development is a process creating growth or progress or positive change, or you're adding something new. So the purpose of development is the rise in the level and quality of life of the population and creation or expansion of local regional income and employment opportunities without damaging resources of the environment. So why do we need development? To improve the quality of life in terms of employment opportunities, income. However, that development should be sustainable. It should not be damaging the resources of or the environment, such that the future generations they should also find the same things that we found. So that's sustainable development. And development is visible and useful, not necessarily immediate. So this means that development can be long-term, is usually long-term. 5 years for you to see something worth taking note of. It usually takes years, but it takes years for you to say, there is a development. And development can improve any aspect of life, quality change in any aspect of life, physical, economic, environmental, social, and so on. So for there to be development, it means people are doing something. So there has to be community engagement. So community engagement and community equals, plus development equals community development. So we can say that community engagement is the heart of community development. But before we go to that, let us look at what are some of the characteristics or common characteristics of developing economies. We'll stop on this for today. So for you to define a developing community or community economy, there are some characteristics that are common. They can be more than this, or they can be less. But the first one is low per capita income. So low per capita real income is one of the most defining characteristics of developing economies. Most of the developing economies suffer from low income, and this results in low savings and low investments. So it means the average person doesn't earn enough money to invest or save. They earn enough just to buy their food and to live for that day. So they live on hand to mouth. So they spend whatever they make. And this creates a cycle of poverty on which a population struggles to escape. So one important characteristic is the low income per capita. And the other one is high population growth rate or growth size. But this one is debatable. So another common characteristic of developing economies is that they have a high population growth rate. This is often because of lack of family planning options and the belief that more children result in a higher labor force for the family to earn income. So this increase in recent decades of population growth rate has often been a result of higher birth rates and reduced death rate through improved healthcare services. But this one is very much debatable, because if you have more people working at your household and everybody is earning an income, they're educated, they've been trained, that means that household will have even a higher income comparing to a household here at Tojeva and the few are educated. So despite believing this is a common characteristic of a poor country, this can also be a good thing if we take it as a good thing, but it can also be a negative thing if we take it as a negative thing. So the other characteristic is high rates of unemployment. This is both common in the rural and urban setups. So rural areas suffer from large seasonal variations because, for example, in Malawi, we depend on agriculture for employment. The agriculture is very much seasonal. It's not usually cultivated throughout the year. This means that even the employment rate is seasonal. Sometimes a lot of people are employed, and sometimes a lot of people become unemployed. And the other one is there is a high dependence on primary sector, which also leads to high dependence on primary commodities. So primary commodities are, for example, you're cultivating soybean and you sell the soybean as it is. That means you're heavily depending on the primary commodity. But if you were to convert that commodity into flour, you'd have a better chance of growing your income. So we can stop here for the day. Any questions? If you have any questions, you can always ask through the group or through my inbox. I'll send an assignment to the group.